It's finally time. Oh my god. Hell is not enough for him. He deserves to die 1,000 fiery deaths.
Suzanne, girl, please, why did you do this?
As promised, today we are going to be doing a reading vlog for Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. It is a miracle to me that this series is continuing on at all, and I am so excited. This is easily my most anticipated release of the year. I don't think anything can come even close to it. I have avoided all theories, all possible spoilers. I haven't read the snippets that have been released online prior to the book coming out because I didn't want to know anything. I wanted to be completely surprised. I'm just so nervous about what's going to happen. I have no expectations, but I also have really high expectations, and I'm really trying to lower them because I don't want to be disappointed in this. But I'm going to take you all along with me as we read through the book, give you all of my immediate reactions, and then we'll talk through everything classic reading vlog style. So obviously there will be spoilers for Sunrise on the Reaping in this video, as well as the entire Hunger Games trilogy, because I will be referencing these while reading this one, because I know that we're going to have some references back and forth between the different books. Beware of that if you haven't read the rest of the series, but I'm pretty sure if you're here, you definitely have. If you happen to not know what this book is about, it follows Haymitch as he goes into his games, the 50th Hunger Games, the Quarter Quell, and we're going to see his story. We already know a little bit about his games if you've read the original trilogy. Katniss and Peeta watch his games in Catching Fire, but this time around we're actually going to get all the details from Haymitch's perspective. My only prediction is that the games will probably be about half of the book, and then we'll get some post-games fallout and everything that happens to him after that. But yeah, that's all I really am predicting for this. I can't believe that in just a matter of hours, maybe one day, I will have finished this and I will know what is inside of it. I'm genuinely so scared. Okay, like I'm actually terrified. Let's just start reading. Okay, before we get into all of the devastation in this reading vlog, I want to let you all know about the sponsor for today's video, which is Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a bookish subscription service that brings brand new hardcover books to your door every single month. I've been using Book of the Month for years now, and I love that they always provide such a wide selection of books to choose from. They focus mostly on new and emerging debut authors, but they also have some pretty well-known and established authors as well. But my favorite thing about Book of the Month, as always, is their incredible pricing. If you use my code bouquet, you can get your very first box for just $5 plus a free hat. $5 for a brand new hardcover, a new release book is pretty unbeatable. And if you read and collect books like I do, that is definitely a huge plus. So be sure to check out that link and code in my description. But let me show you the couple of books that I chose for this month. My first pick is The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. This is a fantasy novel that is about an archaeologist who is trying to discover or uncover this hidden treasure, and along the way she discovers an ancient story about this woman and some ancient magic and sorcery. It sounds pretty interesting and like the type of fantasy novel that I might enjoy, so I'm really curious to check it out. My next pick is another one I've actually been seeing around online a lot, and that is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. This is actually a dystopian romance novel, and I have been in my dystopian era, if you couldn't tell. It follows our main character who has these psychic abilities, and she is working with like the rebel uprising, but she accidentally ends up in the hands of the enemy and tries to work from the inside to take them down. It sounds interesting. I'm so curious about a new dystopian novel. I haven't read any modern dystopian in quite some time, so I am very, very excited to try this one out as well. So again, thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video, and do not forget to use my code bouquet to get your first box for just $5 along with your free hat. Okay, I'm literally like 5-6 pages in. I'm 7 pages in, and already there's so much to discuss. First of all, Haymitch has a younger brother, and his father died in a mining accident, just like Katniss. We find out that his family is associated with rebels, and some people think that his father either intentionally exploded the mines or someone had him killed or something. And now we've also just been introduced to Haymitch's best friend, whose name is Burdock, who I believe is Katniss's father. That's what I'm assuming. 7 pages in for now. And we find out that he is the cousin of Lenore Dove, who is Haymitch's girlfriend, and she's Covey, which means that Katniss is also Covey. That theory that a lot of people had, myself included, that Katniss's father's side of the family might be related to the Coveys, they are. I think we just got confirmation of that. And we find out that Lenore Dove is also named after, this is the quote from the book, she tends to take a dark view of things, but maybe that's to be expected from someone named for a dead girl. Well, half for the dead girl named Lenore in this old poem and half for the shade of gray. So she could very well be related to Lucy Gray directly also. We find out that Haymitch works with a woman named Hattie who makes white liquor, which she sells in the Hob, and as we know from the Hunger Games series, Haymitch is an alcoholic and he is constantly drinking this white liquor. So he also knows how to make it because that's his job. That's how he helps his family make money. But yeah, oh my god, so much information already. I am overwhelmed. But yeah, I'm so curious. I'm already so invested. The way I'm like low-key already about to cry, I'm only on like page 10. Haymitch being like happy and in love and knowing what's going to come, I just can't. I don't think I can take it. We did, however, get confirmation that Lenore Dove is a Baird, like Lucy Gray Baird, and we don't know who her mother is exactly, but her mother died in childbirth and her father is of mysterious origin. Knowing where this all goes, knowing how happy Haymitch is right now, he's literally just sitting in the meadow feeding Lenore Dove's geese. The geese are hers, by the way, which just makes everything 10 times more depressing. I know that it's probably not the same geese because I don't think geese live for, actually, I don't know the lifespan of a goose. They can't be the same geese from the original trilogy, but like, in some way they're related to them. He's still raising her geese. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't know why I like started this thinking like, oh, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. No, I'm gonna suffer. I'm about to suffer for like 400 pages. Anyway, let's keep going. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Still in chapter 1, we just met Katniss's mom. Her name is Astrid March. Haymitch knows her. She's known as like the prettiest girl in town. Everyone loves her. And we have fully confirmed that Burdock is Burdock Everdeen, which is definitely Katniss's dad. And they already kind of have feelings for each other, him and Astrid. We have established that. But the reason I am updating once again is because I am just now processing that Haymitch is best friends with Katniss's father. And we know what happens, at least for the most part, to everyone that Haymitch loves when he comes back from the games. President Snow kills his entire family, so his mom and his brother are going to die. Like, that is established. Burdock is still going to be around because he still has to marry Astrid. He and Astrid still have Katniss and Prim. That still has to happen, which means for all of those years after these games, he's like not going to be friends with Burdock anymore. He can't be, because if he were to stay friends with him, Snow would have him killed. So he just has to distance himself from his best friend after his entire family also gets killed. And I know I'm like jumping ahead of myself, like we have so much left, but I am already so upset. And nothing has even happened yet. We are literally just starting the reaping. He hasn't even been reaped. I haven't even finished chapter 1 and I'm losing my mind. This might end up being the most depressing of all of the Hunger Games books. I don't know why I didn't think it was going to be. I didn't think that before I started this. And literally 20 pages in, I am just now realizing that this is going to absolutely wreck me. I am unprepared. Deeply unprepared for what's to come. Okay, hold on. Something is about to happen. We're in the reaping. Remember, the 50th Hunger Games quarter quell, so 2 boys, 2 girls are being reaped. Both girls were reaped. One of them is Maisley Donner, which we already knew, and the other girl, whose name I don't remember, but we don't know her yet. And then one boy was already reaped, and now the second boy was just reaped, and it should be Haymitch, but it's not. Woodbine Chance? What? Oh my god. Oh my god, hold on. Hold on. You're telling me that Haymitch wasn't even originally reaped? The way I'm about to start crying 20 pages into this book, 22 pages into this book, I've just finished chapter 1. What do you mean? What? I am unwell. I am unwell. Woodbine tried to run and then they kill him for it. And now they're going to pull another name and it's going to be Haymitch. I thought it couldn't get any worse. I thought that after she was like, actually, you know what? Haymitch's birthday is reaping day. There was nothing worse that she could do.
I was then shot 57 times.
You're telling me that Haymitch wasn't even reaped at all. Are you joking? Are you joking? I can't do this. I literally can't do this. Plutarch? What? I cannot believe he wasn't even reaped. This early on in the book, I was not expecting shocking twists like this. I just finished chapter 2. The line. Plutarch, he's directing the reaping ceremony, basically, and he's making sure that they get enough shots of everybody and that he's getting the reactions of the families to their family members being reaped. My heart broke at the line when Plutarch says to Haymitch's mom, just like redo your reaction to Haymitch being reaped, and then I'll give you like a few minutes with him, because Drusilla, who is their Effie, is preventing the families from seeing the kids because she's evil. And Plutarch is like, okay, I'll secretly give you like a couple minutes with Haymitch if you guys just like act for me. And Haymitch is like, don't do it. Don't give the capital your tears. Don't give the capital your reaction. His mom says, no, I'll do it. We'll both do it if you let us hold him one more time. And then she does. And her and his little brother Sid are just reenacting, and then eventually actually truly start crying. Haymitch does get to say goodbye to them, and he gets to hold them one last time, and it's devastating, and I am so upset. And we're not even at the games yet. We're not even at his family dying. I don't know how I'm gonna get through the rest of this. I'm just so afraid of what's going to happen on each next page, you know? Oh, I'm so upset already. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay, read a couple more chapters, took a quick dinner break. We're back to reading Maisley Donner. I'm already devastated over what's going to happen to her. So we've known since the Hunger Games, Maisley Donner was the original owner of the Mockingjay pin that Madge Undersea gives to Katniss in the first book. So if you've only watched the movies recently or you haven't reread the books in a while and you don't remember, that's how Katniss gets the original Mockingjay pin. Madge Undersea, who's the mayor's daughter, gives it to her. Madge Undersea is Maisley Donner's niece, so her mother's sister, is the original owner of that pin. We just got the story of how Maisley got that pin, and so apparently when she was 13 years old, Tam Amber made 2 pins, one with a hummingbird and one with a mockingjay for Marilee and Maisley, the twins, the sisters, and they each got one of the pins. Apparently Marilee lost her pin, and then Maisley apparently just never wore her mockingjay pin and claimed she thought mockingjays were ugly and she wanted a butterfly. So now we know where the pin actually came from. There's so much here. First of all, love Maisley. The way that she stands up to Drusilla in this scene is incredible. Where is the line? Drusilla, who is in essentially Effie's role in this book, but is significantly worse than Effie ever was. Like, this woman is evil. She's horrible and extremely bigoted. And Maisley is very much not taking shit from anyone. And so she talks back to Drusilla, and Drusilla ends up slapping her. She slaps her back because she is iconic. And then she takes out a riding crop and starts whipping Maisley, which is insane, horrific. And then Drusilla says, I'll destroy you before you even make it to the arena. And then this is the most incredible comeback I have ever heard. Maisley says to her, really? How? You're not a game maker. You're not even a stylist. You're nothing but a low rent escort hanging on by your fingernails to the trashiest district in Panem. Eat her alive. Oh my god. I'm already grieving her death. But she's definitely a little rebel. Also, other thing that we learned is that Haymitch's mother apparently had twins a little bit after Haymitch was born. So he had 2 sisters, but then they both died. So not only did he have more family who died when he was a child, and his father who also died, and now he's also going to lose his entire family after going into the games. Also, another thing that Drusilla said is, I think in her conversation, her argument with Maisley, she says something like, I hope you win the games. Let me find it. Yeah, she says, I hope you do win, in reference to Maisley saying, like, if I win the games, then you'll have nothing on me. She says, I hope you do win. You have no idea what's in store for you then. You know nothing. Oh my god, I'm so afraid. Like, we know what happened to Finnick. We know what happened to definitely several of the other victors. I want to know how much the public and also the people who are, at least in some way, like Drusilla and Plutarch, involved in the production of the Hunger Games. How much do they actually know about what happens to the victors? Because they've got to know everything. There's no way they're not aware. It's so interesting to see how different the games and also how differently the districts and the people from the districts are treated 25 years before the Hunger Games and also, 40 years or so after the 10th Hunger Games. The differences in the way that they treat the tributes. Like in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, they even mention it in here, they put the tributes in like cattle cars and transport them as if they are literally cattle. Versus now, they give them like a bunk and they give them some clothes to wear and they give them some food, but it's still, you guys are here and we're just transporting you, really. Versus in the Hunger Games, when we see Katniss and Peeta get on the train for the first time, they are so overwhelmed by the amount of incredible fancy food they've never even seen. They like gorge themselves to the point of becoming sick. They are given new clothes, they are given their own bedrooms and everything, and it's like a completely different experience. They're treated as if they're like royalty because that is how Snow shapes the games over time. But here we're in kind of like that middle period, quite literally in the middle, where things are in between of we're not treating them as much like they're not human, but we also haven't fully leaned into making being a tribute some revered, coveted position, which I think is part of what the story is going to do, since so much of this is going to be about propaganda and how the media shapes people's perception. I think Plutarch is obviously playing a huge role in that, and he's probably going to try and push the games in that direction, because we do know he becomes a game maker eventually, obviously. So yeah, it's just already like super interesting to see how different the conditions on the train are in each book, because it really is such a drastic difference between the 3 different books. But anyway, I'm on chapter 5 right now, so I will probably keep going until the end of part 1 unless something major happens, which it probably will. So I'll actually probably be back in like a couple of chapters, knowing me. Okay, changed into some cozy clothes and I'm listening to music. My Hunger Games playlist, actually. One thing I'm noticing in this one as a, I would say, central theme or motif is the constant comparison of the tributes to animals, which reminds me of Animal Farm by George Orwell, which is probably incredibly intentional considering the epigraph starts with a quote from George Orwell, though I don't think that the quote is from Animal Farm. But the quote says, "All propaganda is lies, even when one is telling the truth. I don't think this matters so long as one knows what one is doing and why." But yeah, there are constant comparisons and metaphors and language that's used to compare the tributes to animals. For example, right now, their stylist just showed up. His name is Magno, and he is kind of not very good at his job and basically just gives the tributes coal mining overalls. But he says, "No one cares about 12, especially you. Get these brats chained up into the stables. My job here is done." There are other lines, I didn't mark them all, but I'm sure there will be more of them too. It's very much obviously, I think, about how we have to dehumanize people in order to be able to hurt them, in order to oppress them. It's much harder to hurt somebody or a group of people if you don't look at them as beneath you, which is the reason why they use propaganda to dehumanize people, because it's extremely effective. And Suzanne Collins knows this, hence why this book exists. Oh my god, Luella died? Are you kidding me? I feel like we're not even gonna get to the games at this point and like everyone's gonna die. They're in the tribute parade, the chariots, something goes off, like a firework goes off or something, and it kills Luella? Oh my god, I'm already devastated. He saw her as a little sister. Luella's the reason that Haymitch even calls anybody sweetheart. It was like their own little inside joke thing, like the way that he always calls Katniss sweetheart. I can't do this. Suzanne Collins, I either need you to pay for my therapy or I will see you in court. Oh. I have to keep going. Wyrus and Mags are the 12 mentors? Are you kidding me? I don't know how many times I can say this. I am unwell. I was so curious about who they were going to make the mentors, but I did not expect Wyrus and Mags. I didn't expect victors that we already know, I guess, to be the mentors. I'm
Oh my god. Beatty is mentoring his own child. Suzanne Collins, what the fuck? Ampert, who wants Haymitch to join him and be his ally, is like, yeah, you can come meet my father. And then Haymitch is like, is this kid delusional? No, no, his father is here. His father is his mentor. His father is Beatty. Are we? There is so much information to take in. The implications of every new detail that we learn are just so overwhelming that I don't know what to do with myself. Okay, backtracking from here a little bit. The comment I made about how the tributes are constantly compared to animals, Haymitch actually literally points that out directly 5-10 pages after I was talking about it. Haymitch is talking about what he wants for himself at this point out of the games, and he says, I don't know yet. I guess, for starters, by reminding the audience that we're human beings. The way they talk about us, piglets, beasts. They called my fingernails claws. You saw how those kids outside the gym looked at us, like they think of us as animals, and they think of themselves as superior. So it's okay to kill us. But the people in the Capitol aren't better than us, or smarter. That's, like, exactly what I was talking about. So great, 96 pages in. It's very clearly stated for you. But then there's another conversation a little bit later on that I found really interesting between Plutarch and Haymitch. The tributes are basically in their first day of training. Haymitch and another tribute end up with some weapons that they could have easily used to attack some of the peacekeepers who were there, but then they don't, and Plutarch notices this, and he says, why didn't you? And they're talking about why do people submit? And I'll just read this passage. Why do you submit to it all? He presses. Because you have the guns. Is it really all about the weapons, though? I grant you that they're an advantage. On the other hand, when you consider the sheer difference in numbers, district to capital, yes, we far outnumber the peacekeepers in 12. I think about the weapons we could lay our hands on, pickaxes, knives, possibly some explosives, but in the face of automatic rifles, aerial bombings, gases, and the capital's menagerie of mutts, I don't think we, quote, submit, I say. It's implied. You accept the capital's conditions. Because we don't want to end up dead, I snap. Do you really not see that? No, I do. I see the hangings and the shootings and the starvation and the Hunger Games, I do. And yet I still don't think the fear they inspire justifies this arrangement we've all entered into. Do you? Why do you agree to it? Why do I? For that matter, why have people always agreed to it? When we don't respond, he shrugs. Well, it's something to think about. That passage is, again, like thesis of this story. I feel like each of her books kind of have philosophical, moral question that they ask. Going back to the epigraph of this book, the moral questions that she's exploring in these books is always laid out for you right in the epigraph. So obviously we have George Orwell. There's the William Blake quote as well, but then there's also David Hume, who was a Scottish philosopher. I really don't know very much about him. It's been a long time since I've read anything about philosophy. But the main quote in this epigraph is, and I'm only reading part of it here, but it's about the easiness with which the many are governed by the few, which is a very famous quote. I think most of us have heard that at some point or another. And the implicit submission with which men resign their own sentiments and passions to those of their rulers. So that is like literally exactly the conversation that Plutarch and Haymitch are having at this point. Obviously, I think we're going to explore how propaganda plays a huge role in that. But yeah, I just love how especially, like, the Hunger Games original trilogy also definitely does this, but I feel like especially with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and this one too with Sunrise on the Reaping, I really like how philosophical these books get and how much she explores very specific philosophical ideas with each book. I'm not finished with part 1. We haven't even entered the games yet, and I don't know what to expect. Is the rest of the book going to be the games? Is part 2 just going to be the games? Part 3 post-games? That's kind of what I'm thinking, but I don't know. I have no idea, and I'm scared. They have a fake Luella. Every time I think that she can't make the Capitol or President Snow any more disturbing or just generally evil or fucked up than he already is, she finds a way to do it. I was so curious how they were going to resolve this, because Luella dying didn't make sense, because we know from Katniss and Peeta watching the 50th Hunger Games in Catching Fire that all 48 tributes were there. So nobody died prior to the games starting. So I was like, if Luella dies, then are we just retroactively changing that? Like, what happens there? No, they made a fake Luella. They literally have some random girl who is, as Plutarch says, potentially child of traitors, either capital or district, unknown. She probably has no idea what's happened to her because she's been brainwashed in some way, and they have her dressed as and made to look like Luella, but she isn't her. And Haymitch has to play the games with her by his side and pretend like she's alive because Snow threatened his entire family. That whole conversation that Snow and Haymitch have was, hold on, first of all, it's been like 40 years. Man is not over Lucy Gray. He is bitter. He notices Haymitch's flint striker. It's the snake bird motif. And he's like, oh, can I see that for a second? And he's looking at it and he's like, there's an inscription on here. From LD, let me guess, what is her name? And then Haymitch's like, I can't lie, her name is Lenore. And then he's like, yeah, but Lenore what? It's gotta be some kind of color. Haymitch is disturbed by the fact that he knows so much about the Covey. He's like, why does this man know about District 12? Why does he know how the Covey's names work? And then Haymitch finally tells him it's Lenore Dove, and he's like, Dove, he smacks his forehead. Dove, I've always heard dove color though. It's a bit of a cheat, but who could resist when you get both the color and the bird? And we know how they feel about their birds. And then he says, do you know much about doves, Haymitch? They're peaceful, is what Haymitch says. And then he says, if they are, they're outliers. All the birds I've encountered are vicious. Yeah, they are, you little bitch. I can't believe he still thinks of Lucy Gray as vicious. My guy, it's been 40 years. Get the fuck over it. And then he says, I bet I know a thing or two about your dove. Like, she's delightful to look at, swishes around in bright colors, and sings like a mockingjay. You love her, and oh, how she seems to love you. Except sometimes you wonder, because her plans don't include you at all. And then Haymitch is like, she loves me, I insist. And then Snow is like, no doubt she says so, but believe me, romantically speaking, you're dodging a bullet with these games. Are you kidding me? You would think... You would think that at 58 years old, something that happened to him when he was 18 would, you know, eventually he'd get over it. I don't think that man has gotten over anything in his entire life. I don't think he's ever let anything go. That is why he is like this. But yeah, crazy. That scene reads so much like the scene in Catching Fire when he threatens Katniss, and I'm so afraid now because that scene was terrifying, and creating a fake version of Luella is insane. I'm so afraid. Okay, good morning. It is the next day. I went to bed because I was either going to stay up all night and finish this book in one go and then not be able to update because it's the middle of the night and I'm exhausted and in my bed and my eyes are just completely bloodshot. So I decided to wait until morning to continue reading. I did read several more chapters last night. I made it into part 2, but I had to force myself to slow down a bit. So currently we are on chapter 17, I believe. Yeah, I'm like a couple pages into chapter 17. I made myself an iced matcha latte this morning in a cute little strawberry glass, and I have some notes from what I read last night. So we are going to go through these and recount everything that just happened because, oh my god. First of all, Effie, unexpected, didn't realize, I guess, this entire time how much older she is than Haymitch. We still technically, I don't think, know her real age, but she is definitely older than him because her younger sister is like a freshman in their academy. I wasn't sure if it was like the university or if it was like their high school, like the one that Snow went to. So I'm not sure how old she is. She's probably the younger sister, whose name I don't remember right now. So the younger sister, my guess is she's probably like 18 years old, because I think when they say academy, they actually mean like the university, which means that Effie, who's older than her, has got to be at least like a few years older than her. So Effie's like in her early 20s maybe, but she is a bit older than Haymitch, which I guess I just never really processed that. The last time I updated, I was in chapter 12, I believe, so right before the end of part 1, and that was basically Haymitch and Snow having that conversation where he basically threatens him and confirms for him that he will be killed during these games because they cannot let him live because of what he did, carrying Luella's body to Snow and then making a statement, which was iconic, by the way. I love young rebel Haymitch, and it really devastates me because we know what happens to him. And then he brings out zombified
Luella who is not Luella. That has to be one of the most deranged, messed up, horrible things that Snow has ever done. He essentially is doing kind of what they do to Peeta when they hijack Peeta, except they've completely brainwashed this girl and she doesn't even remember who she is. And I think she's from District 11, at least that's what Mag says, because she picks a bread that is a seeded bread from District 11, which reminds me so much of Rue. She's basically a deep fake Luella, but it is absolutely terrifying. And I really think that this is going to be Snow at his peak, or at least reaching his peak villainy, because he's younger and he's more ambitious at this point. In the Hunger Games series, he's kind of like at the end of his life, really, and he knows that he's actually dying. At this point, he's still got 25 years left in him. So while it's the same Snow, it's still a different Snow. And I think that he's even more heinous probably at this point in his life than he is later on. So yeah, it's so disturbing to read. After we get fake Luella, who they nickname Lulu because they're like, we can't call her Luella. It's not her and it just feels wrong. Haymitch is so devastated over this, understandably so, because it's traumatizing and disturbing to have somebody who looks just like the little girl who you thought of as your younger sister walking around like a zombie next to you because all she can say is, my name is Luella, I'm from District 12, which is scary because it's like she's a robot, but she's a human being and she's a child. So they're all disturbed by this, but they nickname her Lulu. So now there are the four of them, Haymitch, Wyatt, Maisley, and Lulu, and they are going about their training. Basically what's going on is that the tributes who are not part of the careers have kind of organized with each other and created a group called the Newcomers. And they're kind of being led by Ampert, who is Beatty's son. And Beatty is really the one who's kind of organizing this, at least one of the main people behind the scenes organizing this, because very clearly the rebellion has started already. Like, it began at least in this era, but I would argue all the way back with Lucy Gray. But they're actually starting to organize at this point. Plutarch is in on it, Beatty is in on it, and Beatty, through his son Ampert, has gotten the non-career tributes to form an alliance, essentially, and they're going to try and take down the careers and work together. Haymitch, on the other hand, has been taken aside by Beatty and Plutarch to try and break the arena. They want him to do this because, and Haymitch wants to do it because he is sick and tired of the Capitol and he hates the games and he wants the games to end. And he's trying to fight back. And it is amazing to see the parallels between him and President Snow. They're both in love with a Covey girl who tries in their own way to fight back against the Capitol. And they're also both rebellious in their own ways. The difference being that Haymitch is district and Snow is capital, and Haymitch is also not like an evil dictator. But there are a lot of parallels between the two characters, which I find so interesting. And I feel like I'd have to do another reread and also reread Ballad again in order to fully find all of the parallels. A couple of other like little notes I jotted down. So I mentioned that Plutarch is in on this plot, but we don't really know why. All he's really said to Haymitch is, you should know that despite appearances, a desire for freedom is not limited to the districts. And then he also mentions when he's talking to Haymitch about like this plan to break the arena that he has an old friend in District 12. And we don't know who that is yet. And I'm so curious if we're going to find out or not. Like, I need to know. And then another like little mention too was that Maisley said at some point to Haymitch that she thinks that his girlfriend Lenore Dove doesn't like her, Maisley, because Maisley knows her secret, but we don't know what that secret is, and she wouldn't tell Haymitch. And I'm so afraid because she's definitely gonna die, and I think she's definitely gonna die before she tells Haymitch the secret. But I hope that doesn't happen. Like, I really hope we do end up finding out what her secret is, because I need to know. But back to Plutarch, he, the night before the games starts, ends up taking Haymitch away and is like, here, I have someone who wants to talk to you. And it's Lenore Dove on the phone. He lets Haymitch have a last conversation, which, like, I don't know why he's doing this. Like, I need to know. I really need to know why this is so important to him. Plutarch obviously comes from a very wealthy capital family. We know this. They talk about it in this book as well. And even Snow mentions how he thinks that the Heavensbys are a very privileged family who've never had to like work for anything. They're all kind of just frivolous and silly, because he thinks that he's like pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and his life has been incredibly difficult and no one else has ever suffered like he has. But we don't actually really know anything about Plutarch. Like, who is this friend that he has? Why is he so dedicated to working this system and finding a way to help Haymitch, and ultimately finding a way to destroy the games, because that is also his end goal. But why? We don't know why, and I really need to know. So yeah, he lets Haymitch have this final conversation, and that conversation was so devastating. It was so heartbreaking. They love each other so much, and she is going to die, and he is going to be even more heartbroken than he already is, thinking that he's gonna die and never see her again. But there are also so many references to Edgar Allan Poe, because she reads a lot of poems from Poe to Haymitch, and her name is from a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, which I haven't read it in a really long time, but from what I remember, it's about some man who is grieving the loss of a woman he loved named Lenore. So very clearly she's telling us, even if you haven't read The Hunger Games, that this girl is going to die and Haymitch is going to grieve her. Her fate is in her name, and it's just so devastating. It really feels like, this feels like reading a Greek myth, where like you know what's going to happen. The anticipation of getting to that tragic ending is just torturous. And as much as I'm complaining, I also love it. But in their conversation, there's so many just beautiful quotes. In one point in their conversation, when he's talking to her about how he can't live without her, and she's saying, I can't live on this earth without you, he says, like in one of your songs, my ghost will hunt down your ghost and never give it a moment's rest. Promise. She sounds a little more hopeful, because if I could count on that, I think I could bear it. But what I can't bear is, what if we're never together again? We will be together always, I say with conviction. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know anything, but I feel that in my heart. You and me, we will find each other as many times as it takes. I feel like I don't think there's anything I can do to prepare myself for whatever is about to happen. I really don't. It's gonna be devastating no matter what. This is just going to be so tragic, because I just know that Snow is going to take so much pleasure in killing this poor young girl, because she's going to remind him so much of Lucy Gray. And he is so angry and bitter and jilted because of what she did to him and the betrayal he feels because of that entire situation. And he's literally just taking it out on District 12, and continues to for like the entirety of his life from the time he was 18 years old, which is insane. Like, please get over something. Learn some coping skills and move on, because you're destroying everything. Because your girlfriend left you because you are evil and lied about killing your friend. If men went to therapy instead of war. But anyway, all of this is going on. Eventually, we finally enter the games. Once we go into the games, I completely forgot, even though I reread the Hunger Games series not very long ago, I completely forgot that Haymitch's games are the games where everything in the arena is beautiful. There's plenty of food, there are animals around, it's just like gorgeous scenery, except everything is poisonous. So you eat an apple, you're gonna die. You drink the water, it's poisoned, you're gonna die. And he figures this out pretty quickly. He's like being separated from the rest of the group because he is trying to carry out this plot to break the arena. And at some point, Lulu ends up with him, and he finds her and saves her, and she's going along with him, and then she also ends up dying, and he is devastated. And there's a line when that happens that really broke my heart. She collapses against me, and I cradle her in my arms as the convulsions begin. There's nothing I can do but watch, helpless, again, just as I was to save Luella. For a moment, the two merge, Lulu and Luella. She's just one pigtailed kid I've known her whole life, and I would do anything to spare her this. I read that line and I was like, Katniss. When, I can't even think about it. When Haymitch sees Katniss, and he sees Katniss in her braid. I didn't not even mean to braid my hair because of this. I just did this to keep it out of my face. But now I can't even. When he sees Katniss in her braid, when he sees PETA describe Katniss, and when he fell in love with Katniss because of her two little pigtailed braids, does he see Luella? Does he see Lulu every time he sees her? Because I can't. I literally can't. Like, I am sure plenty of people in District 12, especially people in the scene, wear their hair in a braid. I don't think it's like a Katniss thing. I think she's just doing what people do to keep your hair out of your face. But when he sees this like 16-year-old girl get reaped. It's his best friend's daughter, okay? His best friend's daughter, who is dead and who he probably was never able to be friends with again once he comes back home in order to spare his life. His best friend's daughter gets reaped. He sees this other young boy who was also reaped, who's in love with this girl with the pigtail braids. Every time he sees her face, does he see Lulu? Does he see Luella? These poor... It literally breaks my heart. I can't even think about it. Anyway, that's kind of where we're at. The last thing I do want to talk about is something I think I'm going to save more towards the end, but I'm going to mention it now, so we'll come back to this later because I want to finish out Haymitch's games and then go back and talk about this and look at this some more. But I think we're going to notice, obviously, so many differences between the broadcast that Katniss and Peeta watch of the Quarter Quell in Catching Fire versus what actually happens to Haymitch, because we know how much the Capitol manipulates what people see in the games. So once we finish the games, I do want to go back and like pinpoint the differences between the broadcast and the actual games. So we'll go back to that because I'm already noticing some differences. So yeah, that's where we're at for now. That's my current kind of midpoint. I'm a little bit past the midpoint of the book. I have about 150 pages left, but that's my update for now. Let's finish out the games and then I'll come back and we'll wrap that up and then head into part 3 and the final bit of the book and everything that's to come with that. But anyway, let's keep going. Oh my god, I'm literally shaking reading this. Are you kidding me? I knew it was coming. And still. Lucy Gray's grave? Are you kidding me? Oh, shut up. The epilogue is gonna mention Katniss and Katniss is dead. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Oh my god. I need a minute. I need several minutes, maybe. Haymitch. He did think of Luella whenever he saw Katniss. And he called Katniss and Peeta his family. But he just hung on to life. My god, I'm a wreck. Do you see this? Oh, I am so unwell. I haven't cried like this for a while. Suzanne Collins. Girl, please, why did you do this? Why do your epilogues have to hit so hard? Why are they so painful? No, it's now upside down. Where is it? Where is it? I'm not sure I'll be there in the old there before much longer. My liver's wrecked, and I only dry out when the train's late. I drink differently these days, though less to forget, more out of habit. When my time comes, it comes, but I have no idea when that will be. I know one thing, though. The Capitol never took Lenore Dove from me again. They never really did in the first place. Nothing you can take from me was ever worth keeping. She's the most precious thing I've ever known. When I tell her that, she always says, I love you like all fire. And I reply, I love you like all fire, too. The Katniss and Peeta parallel, too? Are you kidding me? He lost his love, but got to watch Katniss and Peeta live and love each other as his family after his entire family was taken from him and he spent his entire life alone. He finally had the two of them. And they got him geese to raise. And they took care of him. Oh my god. I can't stop. I literally can't stop crying. He spent his whole games trying to help the people that he loved, his fellow tributes, his friends. And they turned it all against him. And they manipulated it into him being selfish and ignored everyone else and let them die in his place. And then he lost everyone. Snow burnt his mother and brother alive. And they literally die clinging to each other. They die clinging to each other, so they bury them in one grave. Are you kidding me? And then he's reunited with Lenore. And he thinks that they're safe, only for her to be poisoned by gumdrops, like the ones that he gave her as a parting gift. And he has to watch her die
watch her be poisoned to death. Are you kidding me? I am not over. I first saw the girl at the Hob when she was just a baby. Burdock was so proud of her, he toted her around everywhere. After he died in that mine explosion, she started coming alone, treating the odd squirrel or rabbit. Tough and smart, her hair in 2 braids then, reminding me for all the world of Luella McCoy, my sweetheart of old. And after she volunteered for the games, that nickname couldn't help but slip out. I didn't want to let them in, her and PETA, but the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable, not if they have ever known love. That's what Lenore Dove says anyway. She's not an easy person. She's like me, PETA always says. But she was smarter than me, or luckier. She's the one who finally kept the sun from rising. I don't even know what to do with myself now. He literally slept on her grave. He slept on her grave because he missed her so much. I'm just gonna cry again. I need to collect myself. Give me some time.
All right, I've returned. It is literally the next day. I had to sleep on it. I was feeling a lot. I cried so much yesterday, and all of last night I just couldn't stop thinking about this book. And I've been trying to collect my thoughts for the last 12 hours, and I still don't know that I can, but I did jot down like a couple of bullet points of things I want to talk about and some of the things we didn't cover yet in my reactions and just some of the general themes I want to discuss. The first thing I have to say is this is so heartbreaking. I have seen so many people describe it as brutal, and that's exactly the word I would use as well. It is unrelenting. It's really painful, especially once you get past the deaths in the games. From then on, it just never stops. I have not cried like that reading a book since I don't even know when. Maybe A Little Life. That's kind of how I was feeling as I finished this, the way that I felt when I finished that book in terms of like the overwhelming amount of emotion. Yeah, it's a lot. So I covered a couple of things as I was crying about the epilogue and like the end of the book, but let's go back to where I left off with my reactions from before and my like kind of wrap up that I did for the first half-ish of the book, and let's discuss the second half. So I think where I left off was basically just him in the games. Earlier I'd said I want to do like a comparison of the recap that Katniss and Peeta watch in Catching Fire versus what actually happens to Haymitch, and I did go back to Catching Fire and read that before I read the chapters with him in the games. Then I realized I didn't need to do that because right after his games he watches a recap of his games, and it's like exactly the same thing that Katniss and Peeta watch. So they recap it for you, so if you don't remember what happens in Catching Fire, it's fine. They will literally tell you exactly what happened and what version of events they end up showing to the people. But let's actually talk about what happens in the games. So we knew from Catching Fire that Haymitch somehow uses the arena to win his games, but we didn't know exactly why that was such a big problem for the Capitol and why they used that to punish him. As it turns out, it wasn't just that he used the arena to win the games and kind of outsmarted the Capitol, it was the fact that he was on a rebel mission to destroy the arena and take down the Capitol. And when we see his games through the recap the Capitol presents to everybody, he seems like he is kind of just out for himself and there to win it, and as he keeps calling himself in the book, a rascal, kind of like selfish and self-centered. But what really happens is that he is just on this mission from Plutarch and Beatty to try and break down the arena itself, which is what Katniss ends up doing in Catching Fire. So basically their plot was kind of to do exactly what happens during the 75th Hunger Games, the third quarter quell, but they failed to do it this time around, so then they have to wait 25 years for them to actually succeed at doing it, but it was kind of the same plan. So Haymitch is kind of on that mission, which is why he's alone most of the time, but he isn't actually alone a lot of the time in the games. I think I covered Lulu's death, but he's with Lulu for a little bit, and that death is absolutely devastating to him. He does not want to give her back to the capital, and it reminded me so much of Rue. It was very reminiscent of Rue's death for Katniss. There's literally a line where he's talking about when he's with Ampert. He says, Luella, Lulu, Ampert, I can't keep a one of them safe. Why do they flock to me? Like, he really does have these like children flocking to him, and every single one of them dies. All of these kids in his life come to him and then they die, including his brother later on. And then obviously over 23 years, all of the tributes that he ends up having to train, he has to watch all of them die too. Like, it is so devastating. These violent squirrels eat Ampert alive and there's nothing left. He says, then I turn back to what I am meant to witness. A small white skeleton stripped clean to the bone. No flesh or clothing remains, only an axe at its right side, my knife at its left. My lips move, but no sound comes out. Buddy, like I have chills. I am so upset. He just constantly watches these children around him die, and it's never ending. Genuinely never ending. And it's, I'm gonna cry again. And I can't. I put on makeup specifically, like I put on mascara to force myself to not sob. So we're trying not to cry this time, but I can't promise that it won't happen again. But I'm trying really hard. Okay, we're gonna get through this. And then right at the end of part 2, we're still mid-games, still before he's met up with Maisley, right after Ampert has died. He thinks that he has succeeded in destroying the arena because it starts to glitch. And he's shouting, he says like, this is my poster right here. I give a wild victory cry, spin around shouting, did you all want a party? I'll give you a party. He's just celebrating for this one moment because he thinks that he's finally achieved what he's been trying to do this whole time, and he still fails. It glitches for a moment. It does mess up the arena, but it's not enough. It's just a small spark. It's not a full-on fire. And we will get into the spark versus fire theme as well, because I am obsessed with what she did. With that, and the parallel between him and Katniss, I just love that she made Haymitch the spark, the flint, if you will. He is given a flint striker, and then he mentors the girl on fire. So he is the spark and she is the fire. He is the one who is the spark of this rebellion, who they start kind of working around to build this rebellion that takes 25 plus years to actually execute. But he's not enough. It takes people truly coming together in order to actually start a revolution. And that is kind of the whole point of this series. And Haymitch's story is proof of that. It's the beginnings of rebellion. It's the beginnings of a revolution, but they are waiting for this right moment when people can truly rally around someone, and that's who Katniss ends up being. And I just loved the thematic parallels between the two of them and the spark and fire metaphor. Giving him a flint striker and making him the spark who mentors the girl on fire is crazy genius. Obsessed with that. Then in the games, he and Maisley finally team up, and I just have to say, I love Maisley Donner. Girl was so cunty and not taking anyone's shit, and it was iconic. And one section about Maisley that I really loved too was, I think about it, her emphasis on manners, her pretty picnics, and I remember her words from the first day on the train. Listen, Luella, if you let them treat you like an animal, they will, so don't let them. This morning's poster says, we're civilized, we appreciate beautiful things, we're as good as you. It's an extension of her whole campaign to show the Capitol our value. Will they know that she's referring to rebellion? I doubt it, but they don't know what Pa told me. The poster could merely be promoting us as tributes, and what harm is there in a few flower napkins anyway? It's implicit submission, which is like the entire theme of this story. I mean, Plutarch mentions implicit submission a million times. Haymitch keeps saying it to himself, like, why do I implicitly submit? Her emphasis on manners, her emphasis on making things beautiful is Maisley's way of rejecting implicit submission, of not submitting. I felt like it was such a great example of a way that might seem small, but is still a form of resistance. Another example of this kind of small act of resistance, of rejection to submission, is just one small line that I don't know if she meant this to be just kind of inconsequential or just specifically about this moment, but to me, this line felt like it had a larger meaning and message to it. This is Haymitch when he's kind of just going through the game is unsure if he should go meet up with someone or if he should keep going at it on his own. And he says, instead of giving up, maybe I'll see if I can be of tiny use to someone else. And I also think that is another perfect example of this small yet entirely huge way of resisting that submission. When you feel hopeless, when you feel like giving up, sometimes all you have to do is just help somebody else a little bit to give yourself some reason to keep going. And I don't know, I just found that really, really beautiful. And I think it's one of my favorite quotes from the entire book, actually. And then Maisley's death, of course, was just devastating. I mean, to be killed by the thing that you love is just horrific, so upsetting. She loved birds and she is killed by birds, which is... Suzanne Collins loves her metaphors, she loves her symbolism, and so do I. I eat it up. And in her death scene, what Haymitch says, she hasn't begged or pleaded, she retained her fury and defiance. Although for me, a person's desperation at the end is not a measure of their life. I know it mattered to her. Maisley leaves the world the way she wanted, wounded but not bowed. I'm trying not to cry. And then he goes on to say, because he started calling her sis and starts thinking of her as a sister. And it's just so devastating because he had two twin sisters who both passed away when he was really young and they were really young. And now he has another twin who he thinks of as his sister, only for him to lose her. Again, the way that every single child in his life dies, I can't imagine the relief that he felt when Katniss and Peeta came back. Oh my god, that's really gonna make me cry. Anyway, after Maisley dies, there's also this line that says, a sister is someone you fight with and fight for tooth and nail. And I really, really love that line too. Anyway, the rest of the games go on and it's very different from what the Capitol recap shows. We find out the real reason that Snow punishes Haymitch so completely is obviously because of everything he's been doing, but it's because at the end of the games when he is fighting Silka, the girl remaining from District 1, and it's just the two of them left, he has a cut right across his stomach. His guts are literally spilling out and he's holding them in his hand, and she has an axe in her head and neither of them is dying. And then he's going to blow himself up basically because he doesn't want them to have a victor, which is exactly the same thing that Katniss was trying to do at the end of the first Hunger Games. Again, the parallels between the two of them, unreal. But then the game makers are yelling like, don't do it, stop, 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 and they do get him to stop so he doesn't die. But he was trying to make it so that the games didn't have a victor because he knows that if they don't have a victor, the propaganda doesn't work. And they need the games as propaganda, which they say many times throughout the book. The games are the Capitol's best form of propaganda. Which I will say, the one complaint that I have about this book, because I do have a small complaint, but the one and only thing is that I think that sometimes the repetitiveness with which the message is told rather than shown to the audience is just a bit too much. I understand why she's doing it, but I do think that it doesn't hit as hard as the original Hunger Games do in terms of like the political messaging and like the philosophical message of the story and the themes it's trying to explore there. The reason I feel like it doesn't hit as hard is because those books already explore every single theme that's in this one. It's just that this is doing it in a little bit more detail about this specific character and Haymitch's specific backstory. But I feel like the other books in the series do a better job of exploring these themes with more nuance and subtlety. This is less subtle, which I also understand because it is a book about propaganda and how it's used to manipulate people. So I think she's trying to be very obvious and very literal so that nobody gets confused or misconstrues the message. But sometimes that just comes across as a little too heavy-handed. But I also, again, like I said, I see the reasoning behind why she chose to do it that way. That's not to say that I think the Hunger Games books are vague in any way. Like, I think they're also pretty direct. Like, it's so clear what she is saying. I just think she doesn't have to say it in the words of like, this is what this means. Whereas in this book, she is sometimes saying like, this is literally what this means. For example, earlier when I was talking about how I was noticing a lot of like animal imagery of the tributes being compared to animals and the people from District 12 especially being compared to animals. I noticed that as a theme because she says it so many times, but then there's like a section and a passage where Haymitch specifically says like, they constantly treat us like animals. They use language that refers to us as if we are animals, and she just literally states it, which like can be okay. It just happens several times with several themes in the story. And if it had been like one or two things, I'd get it, but it just happens again and again. Like the implicit submission thing, They repeat it a lot in the book. Haymitch is almost constantly repeating the phrase implicit submission. So that is like my one critique, okay? And I don't know exactly how I feel about it. Like, I don't hate it because I get it. Like, I get what she's trying to do. And I also understand that this is a young adult series and its target audience is tween to teenaged kids. So I get that, like, you do have to be a little bit more obvious with things sometimes. But I feel like the original series is a little bit more subtle. So yeah, that is my one critique. That is like the one problem I had. Maybe if I reread it, I'll feel a little bit less like that, but that is how I felt reading it, because there were so many times where I was like, yes, I understand that that's the theme. I did not need you to say it to me explicitly. But anyway, once Haymitch is out of the games, this is where things kind of start to change from what we knew about his games, because we don't see anything that happens to him post games. So he's actually like held prisoner basically in the capital for like a couple of weeks. He's just like held in this apartment basically. And it reminded me a lot of the end of Mockingjay when Katniss is losing her mind after Prim has died and after she has killed Coin, and they're kind of just holding her. This is kind of like similar. Haymitch is losing it a little bit, and he's also just like being held captive. Then there's this scene where like there's a TV in the apartment that he's being held in, and like random clips from different games, different Hunger Games, are just like playing at random times on this TV to terrorize him. At one point, he says, "One evening, a haunting melody weaves through my dreams. I startle from sleep, calling Lenore Dove's name. On screen, a girl in a rainbow dress of ruffles sings a familiar tune with unfamiliar words." And it's Lucy Gray, her voice, the accent, the way those fingers command the guitar. A Covey girl for sure, but not mine. Someone shouts bravo, the crowd goes wild, the girl bows and extends her hand to a figure who's standing just out of the spotlight, a silhouette of a man. Upright, trim, a crown of curls. He waits a moment as if deciding whether or not to join her, then takes a step forward as the screen goes black. And then he puts together that that has to be the winner of the 10th Hunger Games, because it is Lucy Gray, and that the man is Snow. So he does figure that out. So he knows, and he realizes that that is why he's going to punish him so hard, because this is personal to him. So I'm so glad that we got that reveal that Haymitch actually has known, like, this entire time what Snow's probably biggest secret is. It's crazy to me that they didn't use it against him at some point later on, or maybe they did in between the 50th games and the 75th, but we just don't see it because we only get Katniss's story and they don't use it during that time. But I hope that they'd used it against him at some point. But then they show him his recap and he's devastated because it's entirely different than what he just experienced in the games, and they've omitted so much, and Plutarch has done such a great job of piecing together a story that fits the capital narrative and that makes Haymitch seem like a perfect victor for them and someone they can cheer for and root for because he's such a vicious, violent killer. And once again, they have their perfect propaganda machine. But what I did find interesting, which isn't in Catching Fire, is that they mention at the end of the recap of the games, the camera pulls back slowly and they carry me away, for the first time revealing the arena as a whole. It looks like a giant eye. The cornucopia marks the pupil. The wide circle of spring green meadows makes up the iris. On either side, the darker green of the forest and mountain terrain narrows to points, forming the whiteness of the eye. While the symbolism has been lost on no one, even the little kids in the scene know the capital powers are watching us. 1984, George Orwell, 1984, Big Brother is always watching. So I really love the number of Orwellian themes and references that she has in here. But anyway, then we go to the after party for the games. They display Haymitch at this party in a giant golden bird cage that dangles from the main chandelier at about eye level. And then people come over to him and feed him like he's a bird in a cage, which crazy. First of all, so crazy to see the differences between these games and this time and how the games are run versus Katniss and Peeta in the 74th and 75th games, and how different it is then, and the way that they operate and the way that they treat the victors more honestly like human. But it's because, you have to lie to people, because once people start noticing that they're being treated like animals, it starts to become uncomfortable and no one's okay with it. So we got to treat them more like human and lie to them a bit more so that people are more comfortable with it and we placate everybody. But at this point in time, they're still fully okay with just being outright bigoted and dehumanizing the tributes and the victors too. Yeah, they literally have him in a bird cage and people are feeding him like he's a bird, which was genuinely sickening. That's not the worst thing that happens in this book, by far, unfortunately, but it is really disturbed. The other super disturbing thing was Haymitch and Snow when Snow is crowning him as the victor. He says to Snow, I guess Snow lands on top, I say under the applause, utterly guilty on all possible counts. I await his sentence. He merely smiles and says, enjoy your homecoming. The chills that that line gave me, I hope that every single person who was making sympathetic edits of Snow because of Ballad and Songbirds and Snakes the movie because you guys thought that Tom Blythe was hot, I hope both sides of your pillow are warm every single night, because my God, the vile piece of shit that that man is, oh, it's so bad. It is so bad. And then they send him back on a train with the coffins of his fellow District 12 tributes, and he just has to ride with their bodies there all the way back home. Again, devastating. If you can see my book, I marked up like so many pages. You can't even see a lot of those because of the lighting, but like every few pages is marked up. Once I got to the end, I was crying too much to like actually pay attention to marking any quotes or anything. So I only have like 3 tabs in here for these last like 15 pages or something. I think I remember some stuff, but there are a couple of quotes I did mark down. One of them that really shattered me when he's talking about Luella and Lulu. This is while he's still on the train coming back home and he's having these dreams or visits from the ghosts of the people he loved and lost. And he says, the strangest visit involves Luella and Lulu dressed in identical outfits sitting across the table from me while I peel and eat a bowl of hard-boiled eggs. Which of us is which, they ask me, but the capital has won. I can't tell them apart. The chills! Oh my God, like genuinely the last like 30 pages of this book are so painful. So painful. It's like line after line, page after page is worse than the last. And it hurts. It really, really hurts. Then he goes home. As we know, this is what I was crying about. He gets home and immediately he sees down the street where his house is in the seam, a fire has started. And it is, of course, his house. And his house is burning and he is screaming because he knows his mom and his brother are in there, and he's screaming to get them out and trying to get them out, and Burdock and his friends are like holding him back and they're like, we can't, we tried everything, there's nothing you can do. And he is sobbing and his mother and his brother are dead, and they, as I said earlier, as I was sobbing, they literally die clinging to each other and they don't want to separate them, so they bury them in one coffin, in one grave. Then we also have the fact that at his mom and brother's funeral and the funeral that they have for all of the tributes when they bury them, Burdock starts singing Lucy Gray's song. Lucy Gray's song that she sings during her games. I think it's called The Old There Before. I don't remember what the actual name of the song is, but he's singing that for them at this funeral. Again, heartbreaking. Then, of course, which I talked about a little bit while I was sobbing my eyes out, Lenore Dove's death. I didn't process the first time around that he feeds her the gumdrop, like the poisoned gumdrop that kills her. He gave it to her. He put it in her mouth. So he killed her. I know he didn't. I know he didn't. And I know that he thinks that he did. And I know he keeps having nightmares where he keeps feeding her that gumdrop. But that was the final straw. Coriolanus Snow, you deserve worse than hell. There is nothing bad enough for him. His death wasn't bad enough for him. Nothing he suffered was bad enough for what he has done. Oh my God. I wish we could go back and redo his death somehow and make it worse. Oh my God. I'm literally gonna cry again. Then when she's like dying and talking to Haymitch, her making him promise that he would end the reapings, that he would end the Hunger Games, because that would give him purpose, that would give him reason to continue going, when she knew he did not want to keep going, not without her, not in this world, that he needed something to keep him alive. And he says later what is probably one of the most devastating lines in the entire book. Her message to me now, her reminder that I must prevent another sunrise on the reaping. And it says, you promised me. With that, she condemns me to life. With that, she condemns me to life? Are you kidding me? All he wanted to do was die, and he holds on to life for her to end this suffering because it is what she wanted, it's what he wanted, it's what he knows is right, and the only reason he can keep going is because he made her this promise, and he loves her so much he cannot let her down, and he waits and waits and waits 25 years until Katniss comes along and is able to fulfill that promise for him. And oh my god, why did she write this? Oh, I'm literally crying again. Hold on. That final chapter is just something I never want to think about again, because we basically have the entirety of the poem The Raven, which is where Lenore Dove's name comes from. And this poem is just intermixed with flashes of Haymitch's life post losing Lenore Dove. And another one of the worst things that happens in all of this is when he's trying to find her grave, because he doesn't know where she's been buried, because the Covey bury their own elsewhere. So he doesn't know where her body is, and he's out in the forest and he's looking for her, he's searching for her, he's calling out her name over and over again. And all I could think about was the parallel between Coriolanus Snow out in the woods chasing after Lucy Gray, trying to kill her, and then Haymitch screaming out for Lenore Dove, trying to find her again, basically trying to will her back into life. And how could she do this? I just cannot believe that parallel. It destroys me. It absolutely shattered me. And then when he's like out here searching for her grave and Burdock shows up, and this is after they've had their falling out because he's pushed everyone out of his life. He knows that Snow will kill anyone who comes close to him again. So he hurts Astrid. Burdock doesn't talk to him after that anymore. And so he's lost all of his friends. He's lost everyone. And he's just in the woods searching, and he runs into Burdock, and Burdock knows that he's looking for Lenore Dove's grave, and he knows where it is because he is also Covey, and he takes him there and he finds Lenore Dove's grave, and he just lies there on her grave for days and just sleeps on her grave, talking to her, trying to get her to come back so he can take back the promise that he made to her, because he doesn't want to keep living without her. And then he buries the flint striker that she gave him in her grave, and he leaves it there, and he goes back and he drinks himself into oblivion, and he stays like that for 23 years. Friendless, lifeless, no family. One of the most upsetting lines, and I don't think that I marked it, but he says something along the lines of like how he's always been surrounded by people, he always had family, he always had friends, and now he's alone, and he's never been alone before. And that was really what killed me, because this isn't someone who wanted to be alone. This is somebody who wanted to live, who loved his love, who wanted to be with her and enjoy life with her and have children with her and build a life together. And now he doesn't have anyone for 23 years until Katniss volunteers and she and Peeta work their way into his heart, and he has no choice but to help them and fulfill his promise to Lenore Dove. And it is the most tragic thing I've ever read. I have like questions that are still left open-ended that I want answers to. Who is Plutarch's friend in District 12? We never find out who his friend in District 12 is and why he is actually a part of this rebellion. Those two questions are kind of what are leading me to believe that this is not going to be the last Hunger Games book. I think that Suzanne Collins is planning to write more, and I think that's why some of these questions were left unanswered. I won't lie, I don't know how I feel about that. I was hesitant and skeptical about even getting this at all. And I don't want to say I'm happy that I have it now, because this was anything but happy. This was so upsetting, but it did answer a lot of questions. It did give a lot more context to things that we had no context for, and gave so much more depth to Haymitch's character, which I do actually really appreciate that about it. The best thing about this book is how much it develops Haymitch's character, which I do think was necessary. We really understand him and his motives in a way that we didn't before, and I think it adds a lot of value to the entire series in that way. In terms of like the actual political commentary it makes, while I think it's important and timely as well, I don't think that we needed this in order to understand the politics of the world of the Hunger Games, if that makes sense. I don't think this added anything new to the political commentary that the Hunger Games series is making in general. It just added a little bit more. I'm glad we have it, but I am still always, I think, going to be hesitant about getting more Hunger Games content. Like I mentioned earlier, I did like the way that the story is kind of showing how a rebellion doesn't just begin one day with one person and immediately take off and immediately work. It takes years, decades and decades and hundreds and thousands of people to build a movement in order to overcome that implicit submission, in order for the many to no longer be governed by the few. And I think she does a great job in this book of showing how that happens over time. There's a conversation that Haymitch has with Plutarch towards the end of the book, in that last chapter before the epilogue. "We do want you. You shook up the capital, both figuratively and literally, with that earthquake. You were capable of imagining a different future, and maybe it won't be realized today, maybe not in our lifetime, maybe it will take generations. We're all a part of a continuum. Does that make it pointless?" I feel like that is kind of just the thesis of this entire book in particular, and kind of like the entire Hunger Games series, but this one in particular. Propaganda is used to create implicit submission. In order to overcome it, it's going to take generations and generations of people coming together to slowly work and build. And I think she does a really good job of laying that out. Like I said, I do feel like at times in this book, it's a little bit offered to you on a platter, more tell than show than I would like, but there are still great passages like that one where they have these meaningful conversations that I did really enjoy. And then in the rest of that conversation, Haymitch continues on to say, "I just don't know, but I do know you need someone different from me. No, Haymitch, we need someone exactly like you. Luckier, I say. Luckier or with better timing." And that is when we get into like the parallel with Katniss. And then at the end of the epilogue where he's talking about how Katniss is just like him, but she is luckier. And she's the one who finally kept that sun from rising, which was chef's kiss, beautiful, devastating. But yeah, that last chapter and the epilogue are some of her best work, in my opinion. It's beautifully, beautifully done. And that final passage where he says, "And so I remain forever trapped in my chamber. I'm so desperate to forget, to escape the grief, the aching loneliness, the loss of those I love. And there are no mementos of them. They're all burned or buried. I work on forgetting their voices, their faces, their laughs. Even in my head, my language becomes dull and flat, stripped of the color and music of yesterday. I make no plans, have no hopes, keep no company, speak to no human being, but I can't say I have no future, because I know that every year for my birthday I will get a new pair of tributes, one girl and one boy to mentor to their deaths, another sunrise on the reaping. And when I remember that, I hear Sid's voice waking me the morning that raven first tapped on my chamber door. Happy birthday, Haymitch." Oh my god, the chills all over my body. And we go directly from that into the epilogue where, yeah, you saw me cry. He says, "I fulfilled my promise about the reaping, or at least lent a hand, but she says I can't come to her yet. I have to look after my family," in reference to Katniss and Peeta. And that was the final nail in my coffin, because the Katniss, Peeta, Haymitch relationship, that found family there, is something that literally makes me insane. I'm not normal about it. I am not at all normal about Katniss and Peeta. Everlark is like my favorite ship of all time. There is no ship I love more than the two of them. The dynamic of them with Haymitch, especially in the Mockingjay epilogue, where we see like them as a family finally free, finally safe, finally having some peace in their lives. It's too much for me to handle. And ending the entire book with "I love you like all fire," and I reply, "I love you like all fire too," as a parallel to Katniss and Peeta's. And so when he asks me, "You love me, real or not real?" I reply, "Real." Yeah. Yeah. I am not okay. I am not normal about them. I cannot be normal about them, and they make me deeply unwell, and this has made me deeply unwell, and it is something I do not think I will be recovering from for several months, probably. But there you have it. Those are pretty much all of my thoughts on Sunrise on the Reaping. We recapped everything. I reacted to everything, and you got to watch me sob my eyes out. There are probably more details that I have missed, and things I will notice later, things other people will have noticed that went completely over my head because there's just so much in this. But I hope you enjoyed the experience of watching me lose my mind over every little detail in here. I hope this book is a reminder to you that no matter what anyone says, reading is political, especially if you are reading dystopian fiction. It is inherently political, it is meant to be, and you cannot care about fictional people if you don't care about real people who are experiencing real violence. And the real violence that happens in here, mothers and children being burned alive, clinging to each other, is happening in real life today. So we can't pretend that those two things are separate. And I think this series does a great job of reminding people of that. And I'm glad that this has come out now, because it is about trying to get people to see through propaganda, see through what governments or people in power are trying to feed to you, because they're trying to manipulate you in order to promote their war machine, make themselves more money. And we need to be able to see that. And I do think it's a very, very relevant book for the moment. So I am thankful that I enjoyed it. I was so nervous that I wasn't going to like this, but I actually really, really did. And God, it was so devastating. But that is it for me. Please let me know in the comments down below all of your spoilery thoughts on Sunrise on the Reaping. What are things that you noticed? What are some plot twists you did not see coming? The most shocking thing to me is still the fact that Haymitch wasn't actually reaped and that the reaping was rigged. I'm not shocked that the reapings are rigged. That was obvious and we've known that for a long time. But I'm shocked that his name wasn't reaped from the bowl at all. Revealing that in chapter 1 was crazy work. Crazy work. Yeah, let me know the biggest plot twist for you and the most devastating moment for you as well. Mine is definitely just the epilogue and him calling Katniss and Peeta his family. That was devastating in a different way, like not actually sad, more hopeful, but it still really crushed my heart. Yeah, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see more book content. And if you want to follow me on any of my other social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!